Hey, I'm Rhiannon and this is Travel Talking, the Travel Talk podcast. Travel Talk is the app that helps you connect with fellow travellers wherever you are in the world. We are the voice of real travellers discovering the world one country at a time, with a few guests joining us and an entire planet to cover.
Go your own way.
Travel Talk. We're like Tinder for travel without the fucking. Search for Travel Talk on the App Store. That's Travel Talk without the E. Go your own way.
Hello and welcome to the last episode of Season 2 of the Travel Talking podcast. It's really exciting. I'm joined with Jo to end the series. Hey, Jo.
Hello, Rhiannon.
It's nice to have you back on the show.
Oh, thanks. And not just in front of the computer. It's nice to be back behind the mic again.
We're also joined this week by Abbey. So we've been watching Abbey move around Europe with a lot of jealousy, haven't we?
Yes, we have. Yeah. A lot of nice sunny places that have had weather that's been a lot nicer than the UK. So very jealous indeed.
Indeed. So, Abbey, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for
Very
coming on.
exciting.
Yeah, it's good to have you here in person as well. Like, we've chatted to Abbey so much before and now we get to actually meet her face to face. Now she's back in London after her trip. Very exciting for us.
Yeah, and we sort of thought the theme for this show could be a little bit about budget travel. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're not a luxury traveller.
No, not exactly. I wouldn't define myself as a luxury traveller. Probably far from it.
It's the best way to travel, though, right?
Exactly.
The real way of travelling.
Yeah, I don't think I want to do it any other way, to be fair. To be fair, like a lot of people I've talked to as well have said, you know, we've been budget travelling, living off like scraps, and I've just said, I just can't imagine doing it any other way, like, for sure, yeah.
I know, right? Like, I've been lucky enough to stay in some 5-star accommodation in, you know, previous jobs where obviously I wasn't paying. And every time I do that, I always think, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't get close to the people. I didn't get to experience the real culture. You just sort of feel like you're almost in a hospital ward, like it's all sterile and not real. And I think no matter whatever happens to me in life, I still find myself wanting to be that person that's staying in the jungle cabin in the middle of like the trees.
I think that's where you get your stories from, though. Like, you don't want to be like, yeah, I stayed in this hotel. We had a spa, we had a sauna. Like, I had literally one night in 3 months where we had that. And it was a good time. But, like, you know, the night where we had to be at a bus stop at 5 a.m. and wait till our Airbnb was, you know, open till 12 p.m. and we had Macca's for lunch. Those are the things, like, it's such a simple thing, but it's just those things that you remember because you can't afford to do anything else. You know what I mean? Like, you know, those overnight buses, everything like that, it just really adds to the experience, for sure.
Well, I find if I stay in a nice hotel, which again, I've only really done with work because I'm, you know, well, I'm cheap more than anything else.
Not work with travel.
But no. Previous jobs. If I have stayed in a nice hotel, firstly, I've thought this isn't even that much nicer than a travel lodge, frankly. And also, I now don't want to leave because I paid so much for this hotel that I just want to like hang out in my nice room. Whereas in a hostel, you're like, yeah, I can't wait to get out and get out of this like shithole, quite frankly, a lot of the time.
Well, not all hostels are bad, though.
Not all hostels, but some of them are nasty.
How many hostels have you stayed in, actually, on your trips?
I think during our trip, like, we actually found that the hostels were probably a little bit more expensive for couple travels. So for us, we only stayed in them when it was absolutely necessary, but most of them were probably around about 20 to 25 euros for a night. And I think we stayed in maybe a max of 6 over 3 months, which isn't really that bad. And most of them had, you know, the curtains, and they were quite like modern. And
I love the curtains.
Yeah, they make such a difference. Like, I'd never stayed in one before and I was like, this is lush. Like, I could live like this forever.
Yeah, I just stayed in a hostel in Bruges, and having the curtain just made like so much of it. I felt like I was in like a capsule hotel. Like I had my own little like
feels
coffin
almost like
space.
boutique-y kind of thing. Yeah. Like, you're like, I don't have to talk to any of you if I don't want to.
So did you stay in Airbnbs mostly then when you were traveling?
Yeah, majority of the time. And we just found that Airbnbs are a lot more central. For a couple, it was like a lot cheaper for us. We maxed it out at about €20 a night each for accommodation.
Private Airbnbs?
Yeah, private rooms, and then some were apartments. Like,
so with the private rooms, like, did you end up getting to know the hosts as well, or how did that work?
Some of them did. When we stayed in Mallorca, we had a host who was quite young, and she was just literally renting out her house, and she had stuffed all her stuff in her wardrobe, and she didn't speak much English, and The only thing I really remember from her was I think I said grazie when I said thank you to her, and she goes, no, gracias. Don't say that to me. And I was like, oh my God, okay. Like, but she was lovely and it was like a nice experience. But we also had an Airbnb when we stayed in the Amalfi, and I wasn't expecting it to be a bed and breakfast. I just thought it was an Airbnb, and she was the most accommodating person I've ever met in my entire life. She just didn't speak a lick of English. She had to get someone to come and translate for us. Every morning she would be like, what time do you want breakfast? Set it up out on a patio with this like gorgeous like mountain drop in the background, all freshly baked breads, and like it was honestly all just cake, like cake, croissants, peach concentrated juice. And she'd like they'd come and knock on our door, give us ice creams, come and see how our day was, like, and we were the only ones staying there, so it was just kind of like a downstairs flat, but it was just the best experience. I think we were going to the Amalfi with high hopes of what it would be like, but being in that kind of accommodation, I just couldn't rave about it enough. Like, it was probably one of the biggest highlights of my entire trip, for sure.
Is that the one you had that really cute picture of you with the host?
Yeah,
Is
me
that
and the
her?
old lady.
Yeah,
I didn't even ask her.
so
I think I had like practiced something in Italian. Like, I really practiced it with, and then I went to say it to her and I completely stuffed it up, and she had no idea what I said, and she just goes, photo? And I was like, I mean, all right. Like, why not? Like, she was so sweet, but I remember I posted about it and I just said, like, if anyone is looking for an authentic experience, like, this is something that you should definitely do. And even just staying in that town, there was not a lot going on there. There's like 3 restaurants, and we went back to the same pizzeria the whole time, and the guy made our pizza into a love heart while I was out getting a drink, just to kind of help my partner try to be like nice to him, kind of thing. It was a really nice experience for sure.
It's always the unexpected places, you know, the tiny places I found that I had the most connection with, because you can really get close to different people, and especially if you've got an experience where a host is willing to go that extra mile, it leaves you with such happy memories, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's different traveling as a couple as well. Like, you go to, you know, hostels. We could have stayed in hostels if we wanted to, but I think when you're traveling as a couple, you want a different experience. You want to, especially when you're traveling for that amount of time, you don't want to be partying every night and, you know, doing that kind of thing. So it was nice to stay up in the, you know, the wop-wops, as I would say, kind of thing. Like, there's nothing going on and you have to catch a shitty bus to get there and things like that. But it's just, it added so much value to our experience.
Is that how you actually save money, though, staying a little bit out of town, therefore?
Yeah, definitely. I think I was more so not in charge of that. I think my partner's got a little bit OCD about where we stay. So it was kind of more on him to figure out where we were staying things. But most of the time you can find places that, you know, there might be 10 minutes from the town centre if you're willing to walk 10 minutes. Like, I think you get so used to this luxury of life where you don't have to walk anywhere. There's a tube or there's a bus, and like 10 minutes walking isn't actually that far, and you're gonna walk anywhere when you're traveling anyway. So it is easy to find hostels that are central, but I think for us Airbnbs is just a lot nicer and a lot more easygoing as well.
And how did you find yourself getting around Europe? Because what countries have you visited again?
So we started in Portugal, and then we went into Spain, and then we went to France, Italy, pretty much did the whole of Italy, majority of the coastline, and then we went up to Germany, which was just like a sidetrack of our trip. We weren't expecting to go there, and then Austria, Hungary, Croatia, and then back to London. So we did quite a long trek for sure.
That's impressive. What was your favourite article of Abbey's, Jo?
Oh gosh, my favourite. I mean, I really love reading about the Amalfi in Sicily, because those are little bits of. I mean, Sicily is technically Italy, isn't it? It's just obviously an island. But yeah, those are bits of Italy I haven't been to before. So, and it's just absolutely gorgeous, isn't it? Like, and I loved your Germany piece, which went out yesterday as we're recording. So that's live at traveltalk.co. Because you did like 4 different cities.
Yeah.
And just all the pictures of the currywurst, like, it just looks so good.
Oh my God, the currywurst. I think I spent like 25 to 30 euros on currywurst.
So good. The mustard, that's what gets me. Like, that, it's a different type of mustard than what we get back at home.
Yeah. And I think like I had said to my partner, we were traveling, and I said, oh my God, I literally can't wait to get to Germany. I want to have all the currywurst. And my friend Kate, she is a German, so she's gone on about these things the whole time we've been at university, and I finally got to try them last year, and I got back there, and it's like €5. It's the most basic meal, like sausages with a little bit of curry sauce and I say a lot of mayo, and then some fries. But it's just like stuff like that. Like, it's just really important to, you know, their culture. And I think it's really cool to try the different foods and things like that. And they're cheap as well. Like, you can do all that stuff on a budget. One a day and you're full for like literally 12 hours. Like, things like that fill you up for sure.
Yeah. And I just, whenever I'm traveling and it's something like that, is like when I was in like Prague and Budapest and Bratislava, like everything there is like bread and meat. And it's well, I guess I'm, you know, basically eating what I wish I was eating all the time, but I'm like allowed to not have any vegetables this week because I'm traveling and it's cultural. So it's like, it's a nice excuse to just be like, oh, and like fries are a massive thing in Belgium. So I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm having fries for lunch again.
Yeah, like I'm not going to be rude to the culture. I mean, if you want
to
try
try every sauce as well. Like,
along
absolutely. With the fries, you like more fries with Andalusian sauce,
yeah, exactly. Mayo. Yeah, I'm like, so I know I don't like their garlic mayo, so now I'll try something different.
Yeah. If you want me to, I'll do it.
Yeah, and it's like, do I have like the Brussels waffle or the Liège waffle? And then now that I've had those, now I'm going to try one with toppings.
Well, exactly. When you're there for a period of time, you're like, I've got to soak it all up. Like, what was actually, in terms of food highlights, because I know budget travel, obviously, it's funny, when you're trying to save money, it doesn't mean you can't eat well, right? You already said you love your currywurst, but what was, apart from currywurst, like, what other sort of food do you really rate for budget travel?
Just trying to think, like, we definitely cooked a lot because we just found it was a lot cheaper. Supermarket shops, they're just saying that in comparison to New Zealand dollar, like, it's ridiculous how cheap it is. When we were in Italy, our go-to was gnocchi, kg of gnocchi pasta for 99 cents. That is crazy. Like, it's absolutely mental to me that could be, you know, so cheap. But other than that, like, when we were out, and especially in Italy, pizzas were like €4, so that's not, you know, no skin off your nose. You could share one of those for lunch, which is what we'd often do, just share a pizza, and that would kind of get us through the day. So we would kind of like, we'd always have a cereal as our like breakfast, and that was, you know, €2 for 4 servings, and then you'd get a coffee, and most of the time Airbnbs will do free coffee, so you don't have to worry about that. And then lunch is just something you share, or you just skip lunch, which is something we did towards the end of the trip when we had no money. And then dinner was always either we'd write in like Google Maps and just do cheap eats, and it would come up with the local restaurants that were cheap near you and places that you wouldn't even expect. We were in Berlin and we were in a market, and we thought, oh, you know, we'll go to a market in Alexanderplatz and it would be really cheap. And things were, you know, €8 and up, which to us is quite like expensive for a meal, and especially something that's snack size. Found a Vietnamese restaurant that did, you know, we got spring rolls, a drink each, and a curry each for €20 for all of it, for both of us, and things like that. So we really utilised app like Google Maps just to find the cheapest places to eat, for sure.
And what about supermarkets and stuff? Like, I've heard Lidl. I was in Lake Garda the other day, and I was like, Lidl, that's amazing. Or Aldi, I don't know.
I love Lidl.
They're obsessed with Lidls and Aldis and things like that. Like, I hadn't really thought that they were that big, but they just have a lot of bulk things that I think that they can put on sale for really, really cheap. So things like croissants and like cereals and just like
cheese and meats. Well.
Cheese, meats, baguettes were a really big go-to.
Wine
for us.
is pretty cheap at Aldi, isn't
I think that's like
€2
€2
sangria.
Sangria. I didn't even touch it because Sean was like, "You're gonna regret it. Like, you're gonna regret it drinking something like that."
Yeah,
it's I don't know, that red wine. Like, it's been known to make me crazy. Honestly, there's something in that. Like,
I think it's the red wine and the heat and the sun and like where you are, and you're just like,
and it's so fruity. Like with a bunch of ice in it, it just goes down like far too easily. Yeah.
Good. So in terms of other tips as to how to save money, I mean, transport wise, how did you get around?
So our main way to get around was travel and buses. I'm a big believer in seeing things by slow travel, which I've gone through on my articles a lot. Just buses, even carpooling. But we used the app Omeo, which was really, really helpful. It just showed us all the routes, the best times. Most of the time we were using Flixbus, which was at least €5 to €15. That includes your bags. It's, you know, you might be faced with like a 6-hour travel time. But when you're traveling for that long of a time, it doesn't really matter. You're not in a rush to get anywhere. You kind of can take a day, and that whole day could be your travel day, and that way you're not spending too much money because you're on a bus. So that was really helpful. But in Italy, trains are our main transport use. Everywhere else was trains and buses. And then we found the occasional flight. I think the most expensive flight we had to get was from Sicily out, because we booked it quite last minute, which was a mistake on my behalf. Yeah, and I do regret it, but it was just one of those things that we just booked last minute, and we just kind of had to go to the cheapest place, which ended up being Cologne. And I think it was expensive, but it added a lot of, we weren't expecting to go to Cologne, so it was a really cool thing for us to do and see as well.
You mentioned like last minute versus kind of planning ahead. How much of your trip did you book ahead so that you save money, and how much did you kind of say, oh, we're here now, let's pick the best route out, and whether that's coach or train or whatever?
So I think in probably around about maybe March or April, we started looking at flights. I had basically planned out a whole route of where I would like to go, and we just found that the easiest places to do were basically following the coastline. So for that, it kind of guided us in what we were doing. We booked flights maybe 3 months out, which we're just on Skyscanner. We just booked, straight to Lisbon, and they were about €70 for included baggage and things, which is really cheap. And then for other places, we mostly, I think before we had left, I had booked up until Montpellier, which is in France. And from that point, that was about a month and maybe like 6 weeks of travel that we'd already booked. And we'd done the accommodation and everything like that. So I kind of just had picked out places we were going, gave us like a subtle route. And then from there, we booked our accommodation, and just transfers between were probably the last minute things we booked. But even so, like, transfers are pretty cheap anyway. You don't really need to book them too far out. I think it's the flights and the accommodation that are the most important things to book further out, because you'll save a lot of money on those. Yeah.
Yeah, trains and buses tend to stay pretty cheap, don't they?
They don't really fluctuate at all, I don't think. Like, you could probably book the day before and it might even be cheaper than, 3 weeks before. Sometimes it's just the way that transport works to kind of fill up, the plane or the bus or whatever. Yeah.
How much of a defined plan did you have before setting out? So obviously you talked about booking a few things in advance, but also were you fairly concrete in the idea of what you wanted to do in each city and country, or did you arrive with a bit of, who cares, let's see what happens?
Yeah, well, I think for Portugal, I was definitely wanted to hit Lisbon and Lagos. Those are the two places I really definitely wanted to go to. In Spain, for some reason, Spain's never been something that I've been really attracted to visit. So I was quite cruisy as to where I went. I just wanted to make sure I hit Barcelona, because obviously there's a big rave about it. But I actually found that Barcelona probably was one of my least favourite spots in terms of budget travel and things to do. Because
Why was that?
I think it's just hyped up. Like, I really do. I think, not to bag on influencers, but people go there and they really do make an effort to hype it up. But if you take a look around in the locals' perspective, it's pretty dirty. There's not much to do. It's really expensive.
I know what you mean. Like, Gaudi Museum looks amazing in pictures, but when you get there, it's a lot of in between. And actually, one of Rory's recent articles about sort of Cambodia, the expectation versus reality, is a great highlight of how a place that, you've been told so many times about, you're going to love it, and you get there and you're like, maybe I was told too many times how awesome it was. But
I definitely think maybe people have different experiences. You might go to their party, you might go to just sightsee. It's a different thing. But for me, like, in terms of Spain, Mallorca was my favorite place, because it was just everything I wanted and more out of travel. It's so cheap and it's beautiful and you can get around easy, and I just couldn't believe it. I honestly couldn't believe it. And I was like, why do people go to Barcelona?
I'm laughing here because I have you're a Kiwi, I'm an Australian, right? And I totally get that. And we have a British here who, you said Mallorca. What's your opinion on Mallorca, Jo?
I mean, I don't represent all of Britain in this opinion, just to be clear about that. But, Mallorca is sort of known to be, where the Brits go to get a little bit of sun, and have a ham, egg and chips on the beach. Like, obviously Magaluf is like mega party town, like the absolute worst of, young Britain is in Magaluf in the summer. But it is gorgeous. Like, I went to Magaluf in August when I finished uni like 8 years ago. And it's gorgeous, like lovely beaches and that. But like,
it's definitely abroad. It's like you go there and all you can hear is like just day drinking kind of thing. It's definitely Brit abroad. Like, there was a group of maybe 30 odd, like just come out of high school students, boys, all Brits. You could tell by their haircuts, like I was like, oh my God, I can see why so many Brits come here kind of thing.
Yeah, and you'll see them like hanging off the pavement a few hours later.
But I think that's one of the best things about travel, and we say this with all due respect, and I love that you said you liked Mallorca. I actually haven't been to Mallorca, mainly maybe because of the stereotype, but I think people when they travel and they come from different places, they see different things in those places. I know for one that Bali for me was absolutely last on my destination because it was just known as where every Aussie goes on their holiday. And, eventually I went there and I was like, it is a beautiful place. You can still avoid the idiot. Same with Ibiza, you can have two different experiences at Ibiza. You can party really hard or have a really nice day on the island, but I've just sort of found it funny when you say I love Mallorca, look at Jo,
and I'm like,
think,
lovely.
Yeah.
I mean, because it is lovely, right? It's just that, when I think of Mallorca, I think of Magaluf, so
but it's
funny.
great that you saw it differently. I mean,
Yeah.
actually, and I say this very much for the Aussies and the Kiwis and perhaps the more Southern Hemisphere people that find Spain, quite frankly, very exotic. What do you recommend you do in Mallorca to maybe avoid, the Brits abroad, but still have that balance that you really enjoyed?
Yeah. So we were staying in Palma, which I think really helped. And I also didn't have a preconceived idea of what Mallorca was like.
And Palma's lovely.
I feel like Brits abroad, like you can find them anywhere you go, really. So for us, we weren't like
can't avoid us.
Yeah, we didn't know that that's what the main thing that you guys went there for. We pretty much just associated it with Love Island, which is basically all we knew. And so when we got there, like it was just Palma. We had a day in Palma. Then we hired a couple of bikes and we biked around the coastline of Palma and out to secret little cove beaches. And we ended up finding our way onto like a nudist beach. And it was just like not something I didn't get involved, but like it was just like, something different. And it was a cool way to, be amongst the locals because it was, everything was cornered off and you had to climb fences and stuff. Or you could hire, scooters and go scootering around the island. And the people who we hired scooters off gave us like a route to go to get all the nice beaches, the coves and things. So we did go to Magaluf, but I think there's just so much more to see kind of thing. I think if you go and stay in one place and you're there for one specific reason, it's really easy to get wrapped up on that. And which is Magaluf is just parties. It is what it is, and you can tell as soon as you get there. But I think we spent a week there, so we had a lot of time to really explore. And we even have said to this day we could spend 3 weeks, maybe a month there, and really just it was amazing. Yeah,
there's something to be really said for places where the tourist ecosystem is actually quite developed. I mean, there's downsides to it, but, one of my favorite places to travel to is Thailand. And I've been there multiple times over the last sort of 10 to 12 years. And obviously it's become more and more developed over the years. But I just find that it like never fails to deliver. And sometimes the joy of actually traveling to a place is that, you can walk up, you can have some atmosphere, it's cheap enough. And as you said, there's people with scooters, there's maybe you can rent a boat. It's all set up for you. And I find that I do love getting off the beaten track and going to places where there is no ecosystem and set up, but that's harder travel, isn't it?
Yeah. I think anywhere you go, you could get off the beaten track wherever you go in a tourist environment. I think you've just got to be particular about what you want out of your experience. So you could go to a beach and there could be so many people, it could be packed, and you might be able to go, you might be sucked in by a touristy boat trip for a day, but you're getting off of the cove and you're going around to these places and you're spending a day going in coves and things. And then that is an experience off of the tourist experience itself. And I think it's really important. Like, some people, like some places are saturated with tourism, and being in a tourism industry, like I know that, and I do feel bad for places because, they are saturated with people, especially over the summer months, but you can really find your way out of those places easy. Like even the Amalfi, like things just like taking a boat ride around the coast instead of hiring a car like a lot of people would. You're getting a different experience.
So where are your next travel plans? You've come back to London for a bit now.
Yeah, we've settled in London, unfortunately. Well, not unfortunately, but just in terms of like I'm not traveling anymore. I'm going home in December for my brother's wedding, but I'm just going by myself, so that's only for a week or so. And then when we come back, I think we probably are looking into doing Egypt, we're looking into doing Morocco, and then we're looking into Turkey as well. Those are probably our 3 main places. We also want to hit Greece at some point, but we're thinking that we'd like to go and do, a month or so in Greece and just, live like that lifestyle, not be too pressured. That's why we didn't end up going at the end of our trip, because that was supposed to be our last place, and then it was just a little bit more expensive, and we thought maybe better to do it with a little bit more money than, saying do it on a budget and not have a good experience kind of thing.
So is the plan to sort of work here, save money again, and then travel?
Yeah, I would like to do some of Scotland and some of Ireland, obviously. My family's from Scotland, so it would be a nice experience to go up there, but just kind of make a little bit more like use out of London life. I feel like saving and living in London is a feat in itself, and I do appreciate that it is quite hard to do, and I spent a lot of time last year sacrificing a lot of things so that I could go and do this travel, and I don't regret anything at all, but I would like to appreciate London life and UK life a bit more as well, because that's essentially why you move over here. It's not just Europe, it's UK as well.
Yeah, and it's quite cost effective to do things in London if you are smart about it, right?
Yeah, you can definitely do and see things in London without having to spend a lot of money. Obviously, the tube, but like say the other day I walked down to Tower Bridge and I was just cruising around that area, and I managed to walk from Tower Bridge right back up to Bethnal Green, and it takes you 30 minutes or something. It's so close together, and you think that it's not, and these things are free, and even just walking around and getting idea of understanding of where the business centre is and where these like central icons and things of London are is really important, I think, to not just like seeing London but living in London, so you feel like you're actually at home and you're not just like in this big city.
That's how you connect with a place, really getting under the skin. What do you think about the difference between winter and summer travel in terms of budget shoestring traveling?
I think like with anything, you can budget travel. It's definitely achievable and attainable, but obviously doing it off-peak is probably a lot cheaper, but it depends on what you want to get out of it. If you want to be living in the sun, 24/7, which is what we wanted to do. I'm not a winter person whatsoever.
I got that.
You're going to love London.
Yeah.
But I did get that from your post, kind of like reading them. I was like, pretty much, I've seen so many pictures of you by like a beach or whatever.
It's just,
but you look like you were loving it.
I know. I do appreciate winter and things, but I'm from a place where, winter, I'm around snow, and I'm from a coastal town, I'm around a mountain. Like I have that on a daily kind of thing. So being able to have a full proper summer, and this was my first full summer. Obviously, I've worked in hospitality for a really long time. Haven't had any time off. So this is my first full summer to actually appreciate it. And I managed to get a tan, and I was just, living my life. But I think, you definitely can do budget travel, but obviously doing it off-peak seasons. I traveled last year in an off-peak season and, end of summer, September, October, and it was cheap, but I wouldn't say it was, we went to Cinque Terre and it was probably a little bit cheaper than, peak summer, but it wasn't, marginal. I think it's just what you want to get out of the experience as well. Like you could pay a little bit more and it's actually not that much more. And
what about camping? Because you're not a camper.
Oh, I don't know. We had a week where we went to Zaire and we had the options to camp and it was free. And I put up a massive fight and was like, I'm not doing that for a week. There is no way.
At a music festival as well.
Yeah, I know. And you just don't want to do that for 7 days. But I think we're definitely, with Elise, I really appreciate her style of travel where she's doing camper van with her partner. I think that type of travel I could definitely do. But I've read, other travel bloggers and things who are living on a budget, and there was people who have done tent travel and they have saved so much money. So I think if you've got a car, it probably would have been an option for us, but we just didn't really think in the long term of what we wanted to actually do. I think if we had a car, we definitely would have done it probably. But it's just, you sacrifice a lot, don't you? You sacrifice water.
Showers. Everyone, if you're going to be traveling in the peak of summer, I think it is nice to be able to have a shower at the end of the day.
And it's nice to come home after a long day and just be like in a room, and you don't if you don't want to leave the room, you don't have to, kind of thing. And sometimes people think, oh, travel, you're out doing stuff every day. But you're actually not, because when you're traveling that long, it's tiring. And sometimes it's nice to have a place to come home to and just, relax.
Quiet time, cool time.
Yeah, recoup and just be like, feel like, because you're living out of a suitcase, you're doing stuff all the time. It can be quite like repetitive as well. And you wouldn't think it would, but I don't take for granted anything, but sometimes you do have to just really appreciate those days where you just chill and you've got your own space and you're just relaxing.
I 100% agree. Like my favorite travels, because I backpacked nonstop for 3 years once, right? And when I first started traveling, you come from Australia, and I didn't get to leave Australia until I was 19. Don't come from rich parents, and I dreamed of the rest of the world, and I saved up enough money to go on a Kentucky trip. The first time, 19, and it's all about like smashing it out, seeing as much as you can, which I did. And, that gave me the bug to keep going. And then I remember actually Paulie, who is CFO now, we flew into Peru together, and I was like on the same mission. I was like, right, we're going to see the whole of Peru in like 4 days, And he just looked at me and he's like, can we not? Can we go a bit slower? And I was like, yeah, we're going to take an overnight bus here and we'll stay here for a day, and then we'll go another overnight bus, and then we'll go another overnight bus. And it was only when I stopped, we sort of got to Cusco, and he's like, I'm not doing this anymore, Rhiannon. Like, we're going to take some Spanish classes here. And I was like, okay. And it was really foreign to me, the idea of stopping, because I sort of thought traveling at the time was about seeing as much as you can. Like, what if I never come back to Peru and I want to see it all? And this is way before you had to book ahead to do Machu Picchu. We were lucky enough to rock up and do it last minute. But he's like, let's take some Spanish lessons. And we stayed in Cusco for 4 weeks and did a Spanish school. And it's the first time I'd stopped, while traveling, instead of trying to smash out all the bucket list stuff. And that's when I became a different traveler. I realized the beauty of traveling is, just taking a moment and sometimes going off on a path that you never expected. But like you said, being tired at the end of the night and thinking, well, you did something pretty exciting, but you're probably in bed by like 8, right?
Exactly. Like most nights we were, in bed by 8 or 9 o'clock. But I think you're out all day, you're in the sun, you're hiking, you're trying to get as much in. And I did have a point during the trip where I felt like we weren't seeing as much as we should be or doing as much as we should be, because I think there's such a preconceived thing around, partying, and you have to be constantly going, wake up hungover, let's do this, let's go out and sightsee. And it's just not like that. And I think that's something that I really want to make a point of, is that if you want to just travel and you want to have an experience, you're on holiday, you can do whatever you want. And that's something my partner always said to you, is like, we're on holiday. You don't have to do anything you don't want to. If you just want to chill, let's chill.
Well, who are you trying to impress otherwise?
Exactly.
Right?
People don't know what you're getting up to. You might see a certain persona of someone on Instagram or on social media, and people think that you're doing stuff all the time, but sometimes you're just not. And that's reality of trying to make the most out of your money and trying to make the most out of your time. We wouldn't have get as further as we did if we had been doing stuff every single day.
And I think Jo does a great job editorially of, showing the real side of travel, sharing the right photos, because that's something that we're never trying to do here at Travel Talk, pretend that travel is all glamorous and perfect. In fact, I know for sure that I look at myself sometimes, if I catch myself in the mirror and I think, what the oh my God, I'd never be able to go to work looking like this normally. My hair's all frizzy, no makeup, sunburnt. But I think, Jo, you did a great job of capturing what it means to travel. And obviously we're lucky enough to have the contributors send us some really great sort of photos in situ, but we're certainly never trying to fabricate that travel is perfect, right? It is. It's sometimes you muck up, right? Sometimes you do think, I just want to be home and have a nice shower, but we always remember why we do it in the first place.
Yeah. We were in the Amalfi and we were in Furor, and I wanted to go down and do the Furor Bridge, which has been closed off and things. And, I got some really good photos there. I got some good content that I was really pleased with and things. And I've seen these photos on multiple platforms of people going down there, and it's amazing. But you don't get told that there's hundreds of thousands of steps. And we went down, it was supposed to be a 45-minute hike, and it turned into an hour and a half, and I had mud all over my legs, and there was rabid dogs that wouldn't let us pass. We had to go all the way back up to the top again, and we got down there, and you have to climb over a bridge and climb over a fence to get in, and it's all cemented off, things like that. People don't see the background, and I really wish that you could explain more. You don't want to drag stuff out on social media and your posts and things, which is I think why the blogs have been really important for me and why I've focused on budget travel, because that is the real travel. You have to climb over shit. You have to sometimes you have to do break the law, not the law, but break the rules kind of thing to get to places that you want to see. It's not luxury. You're not, sipping on red wine every night in Italy kind of thing. Sometimes it's as we said, a $2 box carton from a super red kind of thing that you're just sitting on the beach, and that's the way that it is. And I think that's why budget travel is so important to me. It's real, and not everything you see online is the way that it is. And so being able to blog and write these things has been really important and helped me grow a lot as well, because it's made me self-reflect on the things that have been important in my travel as well.
We're really grateful that you took the time to share those experiences with us. That's kind of what we had in mind when we started traveltalk.co. Obviously, still really young, but you're one of our star contributors, actually. And, out there, if you're listening, if you are interested in writing for us, hopefully Abbey can testify that it's not been a bad experience.
No,
and
not at all.
Helped you travel a bit further, maybe with a bit of extra cash in your pocket.
Yeah, definitely. If I was saying to you guys earlier, before we started the podcast, I said, I would not have been able to get as far as I have without being able to be a contributing writer, and it's really helped not only my personal growth, but my platform. And people have been saying to me that they've really appreciated being able to read the things I'm saying, and I've had quite a few people messaging me from the blogs that I've been writing and asking about Travel Talk. So yeah, I think the platform's going to grow, and it's really cool to see that you guys are really passionate about the same things that I am, and it's nice to work with people who have these passions.
Oh, well, ditto. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for joining us on our last episode of season 2. It's been such a pleasure to have you here and in person after all the articles you've written. So thank you.
No worries. Thank you for having me. It's been great.
No worries. And Jo, you know, we've made it.
We made it. Yeah, it's been a very exciting journey. So yeah, it's nice to be back behind the mic for the last one of season 2. So stay tuned for season 3, I suppose.
Yeah, we'll probably have a bit of a break for a while, but we'll gear back up as we head towards Christmas and start celebrating all the sorts of things that you can do over the colder season. But also remember that in the southern hemisphere it's pretty warm there. So yeah. Goodbye for now. Thanks for listening. If you've been following us over the 2 seasons, it's definitely been a journey. Travel Talk obviously started as an app. Now we have our editorial platform, Contributor Network, and our podcast. But as always, don't forget to download our app. We're still very young, and we really hope that one day, you know, our app is used to help travelers connect all over the world. And we ultimately need your support to get there. So we hope you enjoy our app. Do let us know if there's anything that you would like to feedback or like to see in the app. We do listen. And take care, and catch you traveling next time.
Travel Talk. We're like Tinder for travel without the fucking. Search for Travel Talk on the App Store. That's Travel Talk without the E. Go your own way.